Question. Why don't you tell me about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Joli Vidal. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Currently, I'm a senior studying psychology on the Premed track. I'm an aunt of 9. I love telling people I'm an aunt because that's probably one of my favorite roles. And I'm also the founder of Songs of a Caged Bird. I also do a lot of volunteer work with a nonprofit organization called Baseline Medicine. And yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm also an uncle. My niece is turning 2 in April, so I can understand. Yeah, she's very cute. But you're an aunt of 9 already.
Yeah,
That's
it's
exciting.
crazy.
That's exciting. Does it hurt your pockets, like to send gifts and stuff?
Actually, no, the last time it did was I think last Christmas. And that was the time when I actually started working. So I had money to be able to ride. And I was just like, whoa, I'm not doing that again. So like
Right.
the next Christmas, it was a break. Everyone just got a hug and a love you from me.
I like to ask people this because I don't want to be the one to define what success is. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to interview like successful Black people and then I choose, because I'm definitely going to be biased if I do this. So I like to start the interview by asking you, how do you define success? And do you find yourself successful, or do you think you're getting there, or just take it away?
Yeah, so actually, that's a good question. That's something I think about a lot. I think for me, success is really the progress and the tenacity to be able to reach a certain goal. I don't like to quantify exactly what success is. So, like, for me, it's not necessarily when I get a certain income. It's more so for me, I'm looking about the impact. And when I make an impact in certain communities, that's how I know I'm successful. Do
Yeah.
I think I'm successful? I don't know, because I feel like it's very longitudinal. I feel like there's never going to be a point where I feel like, yes, I did it, I'm finally successful. I feel like there's always different levels to when I'm going to want to reach a different type of success. So I think I'm still working towards it.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Sorry, because what you talked about like, wanting to make an impact in a specific community, I think I strongly relate to that. I've always thought that being like successful, quote unquote, meaning financial success without any outreach is a little bit empty, because then what's the point, right? So that's a very good point. Thank you for bringing it. What did you major in?
Yeah, so I'm still in college. So right now I'm majoring in psychology and I have a minor in health and wellness. And then I'm also on the pre-med track. So I'm aspiring to become a physician.
You're aspiring to become a physician. What branch of medicine are you interested in?
Honestly, I don't know.
You don't know
Before
yet?
I used to want to go, the reason why I became a psychology major is because I want to do psychiatry. But then I learned a lot about that. And now I'm also interested in OBGYN. I'm also interested in pediatrics. I recently became interested in oncology. So that, I don't know. Right now, my main focus is just trying to get into med school.
Yeah. What
Not
made
yet.
you interested in medicine?
Actually, for me, it was very different. I do have like a lot of medical, what do I say, like causes or like medical discrepancies, maybe. Like I am asthmatic. I've been in the hospital several times. I also have eczema, so I see a lot of doctors. But for me personally, it wasn't really one of those stories. It's really came from reading. I love reading. And one of my favorite authors, Jodi Picoult, she wrote a book called Handle with Care, where she talked about a young girl with OI, which is osteogenesis imperfecta. And I got really interested in learning about like new medical discoveries. How did the doctors interact with these patients? There was another point where she talked about some of the nurses and the doctors in another setting. A Muslim family was giving birth, and they had actually asked the doctor to respect their wishes about the father being able to be the first one to give the words. So I thought it was really cool how culture also plays a role in medicine. And then that's just how I got interested and started volunteering in the hospital.
That's a very unique story. That's very cool. But so I know I've always been interested in medical school and medicine as well. I actually started as like a biomedical science major my freshman year, and then when I transferred to Stony Brook, that's when I switched to chemical engineering because, well, everybody was telling me, hey, you're an international student, getting into med school is not easy. You want to have something that you can fall back on. And I'm glad they did that because they were probably right, right? But I don't know. It kind of felt like it pulled me away from medical school. And now I'm not even sure I even want to do it anymore because it feels like it's time to adult. I have to pay my loans and all of this. So like, yeah. So I always felt like I had to have plan A through Z. So do you have like things to fall back on, or is this like you're doing this and that's final?
Yeah, no, yeah, I actually don't have a fallback plan. It's really, I just know I want to go into medical school. For
Yeah,
me personally, I do know if I have too many other things to fall back on or too many other like outside ideas,
you
I
get
sort of lose
distracted.
focus.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then it's like hard for me to really like just stay motivated. So for me, I know that even if I don't get in like the first few tries, I just know that I'm going to keep pushing and I really just want to go into medicine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's exactly what happened to me because I had these things to fall back on. You know, I didn't even take the MCAT, so I was like, I'll take it next year. I'm rooting for you.
Thank
We'll have a
you.
follow up interview
Yeah.
after you make it. Yeah.
What are you
Um,
studying now though for your PhD?
I am currently in bioengineering.
Okay.
I'm in the second year of bioengineering. So I don't know if you know how the PhD works. I didn't know until I applied. So it's basically like a 5 year um, project, right? Like it's like a 5 year research project, and then that culminates into your thesis, and then you write the thesis, and then you defend the thesis, and then you graduate with your doctorate, basically. But in between, there are like multiple stages where like the first one was the how's it called here? I just passed this. How am I forgetting? The preliminary exam is like you have after your first year you have to pass a set of exams that tells them you go from being a PhD student to being a PhD candidate. At least that's how it is here. Um, and then the second step that you have to pass is to defend to propose your thesis. So you propose it to a committee, and then that's typically third year where you tell them, okay, now this is my plan, this is the research question that I'm going to tackle, here are my aims, and then they tell you, okay, this is good, this is not good, this is too broad, you need to be more specific. And then the final 2 years are you just go all in on your research. And then the first 2 years, typically, you take classes. So I didn't do a master's. I went straight to PhD. So you take the classes and it's like kind of like your master, really, but it's just part of the program anyway. You have to do it. And then you just keep going. Yeah. It's long, it's interesting. It can be very annoying sometimes, but I think it's really cool. It's really cool. Like you have to be very creative. It's like you can't get bored really when you're doing a PhD because what you're doing nobody's done before. So you have to think
I
outside the
love that.
box. Yeah. So I like it so far. Tell me what like a typical day looks for you like in college as you're a senior right now.
Oof. Okay, so a typical day,
Yeah.
it's a little bit hard to describe, but for me, I do have classes. So I'm taking physics lab, sex bio, and some psych courses. So that's here and there. Usually I am in the hospital though, because I do intern in the emergency department.
Very cool.
And so with that, yeah, I'm basically a patient experience facilitator. So I go around to all of the patients, see how they're doing. Do they need anything? Do they need any questions about the medical care? I'm learning how to collect urine samples, which it may sound a little bit gross, but actually it's pretty cool. Yeah, so I actually asked the nurse, could she teach me? So right now they're teaching me how to do more of those things just because a lot of the providers, they have so much to do where I was just like, hey, like if I can just collect it. So it's really simple. It's just like the patients, they pee into like a tube and then you collect it into another tube. And then I just had to put a label on it. So it's not too complex or it's not too much like valuable information. I just had to make sure I get it, in the proper places and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, what you're doing is very impressive, by the way. Like you're shooting
Thank
for the
you.
stars, right? And I think one thing that you'll see often in my interviews and my question is that oftentimes, at least in my experience, I feel like Black people are discouraged from even trying to reach certain goals. And like you obviously didn't let that stop you. So like what steps did you follow really to get like I guess pre-med? What steps are you following right now to get into medical school? And did you ever encounter people that are kind of letting you know that hey, you can't do this, you should stop now?
For sure. I feel like I'm always calling my family back home at least once a week about something that like something discriminatory. Like I'm also an honors class, so I'm also
Mhm,
conducting research. And then I did have like sometimes professors. So I'm usually whenever it comes to things like this, I'm usually always the only Black person there. And so
mhm,
then I do know like sometimes one of my professor, so he would always acknowledge another student about him being able to go into medical school, like he's going to be so great. I know that we were both struggling with a project and he was really on guard for him to see it through. But for me, for my advice that he gave me was that
yeah.
I should just quit. And I was just
Oh
like,
my
no,
God. Did he say it? Did he say it bluntly like that?
yeah, he was just like, it seems like it's just too complicated. If you're not understanding the research, then, you could either try to find a new research mentor, but that will be really difficult, or, you can just leave, the honors project. And so
Oh my
I
God.
knew I always wanted to do research. And that's just something for me where it's
Yeah,
just like, I'd never been in honors. And I
yeah.
was just like, no, like, I want to prove to myself I'm smart enough to be in honors. I deserve to
Hmm,
be here.
hmm.
So I went through as many research mentors as possible. Luckily, I was able to get a new research mentor. And she was really great, really accepting. I love the work that I'm doing. I'm working with foster parents and foster children
Very
and
cool.
looking at the psychology development of that. And then, uh, you know, later on, when I was giving my presentation about my new work, the professor was just like, honestly, I did not think you was going to be able to do it. So, I get things like that. I also had another supervisor who also thought I wasn't going to be able to pass my bio classes. A lot of the times
Why
I get,
not? Why wouldn't you pass a bio class? Why
I
not?
don't, I was also working as the RA,
Yeah,
as you know, a
yeah, we
resident
work together.
assistant
Yeah,
for people who don't know what it is.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I always face things like that. I'm always like excluded from different groups. Personally, what I realized, I don't know if it's really healthy, but I realized that for me, I can't do too many groups. I don't like working in like study groups anymore. I realize it can just be very detrimental to my mental health. So for me, I really just focusing on what do I know, and I look for specific people who I
Hmm,
think can at least motivate me and I can study with.
hmm.
I still try to network as much as possible, trying to get into like, different medical specialties, shadowing those people, and just maybe looking online, doing more readings. I love to read, like I said, just to learn more about the medical field, where I should be going to the career advisors and getting help from there. So I think that's definitely my path, is just understanding that there's definitely a lot of racism in this field, but I need to at least have my own separate support system and also just focus on me individually and know what can I do.
Well, I think one good thing, you said a lot of good things here. You touched on a lot more that I wasn't even thinking about. Um, One good thing that you said is the fact that you're looking for your own support system, which I think is the most important thing. Like throughout my time at Stony Brook, but I felt the most supported at NESB. And like this was the National Society of Black Engineers, for people who don't know. Um, Really, this was the only real support that I felt at the school altogether. That's not true. I was also supported quite a bit by the Dean of Students office, but because I was working there. And a lot of us just don't even know that that exists until, you just stumble upon it. So, which is why I think it's very important. Again, I said it in the last interview, I'll say it again. It's important that we get together and create our own, support system where we talk to each other and then we let each other know about our experiences. Because sometimes, even if someone doesn't have an advice for you, just knowing that they're going through the same thing you're going
Yeah.
kind of gives you strength to keep pushing. Like it's possible. Like you're not you're not doing this for nothing. You can get to a position where you're in a position of power, and then now you can help other people come in. And I know that when I was applying for, and I don't know if it's because it might be a cultural difference, right? You're first generation, your family's from this is the Caribbean, right? Dominica.
Yeah.
Your family is also from the Caribbean, right? So it's, I don't know if it's like a cultural difference where we're thought to be like quiet and not talk too much about what we're doing. And then that also plays a role into people thinking that we can't do anything, right? We're not smart enough to do anything. Because when I was telling people that I was applying for graduate school for a PhD, most people looked at me like I was crazy. And I didn't understand why, because I knew my potential, I knew what I could do, but it felt like everybody else was like, what are you doing? I had somebody literally tell me, like when because I was looking for advice, I'm always looking for mentors, for people to help me out. And then they literally told me, you shouldn't apply to this school. You're not going to get in. Like, I don't want to discourage you, but if you look at people that get into these schools and then compare them to you, it's not going to be you. And I don't even think they were trying to be mean or like, I don't think there was an intention like to hurt me behind it, but I just think it just comes naturally to just, they look at me and they're like, you're not, and they're like, you don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about my resume. You don't know anything about me. I'm just here just because I'm like talking to you and joking. I feel like in this culture, sometimes you have to be a little bit out there with like every little thing you do, you have to say it out loud so that people know. And that's not something I'm used to, right? I'm used to being quiet.
I agree.
I do my things. But no, like if you're here, at least in the US, you have to be very loud about everything you do. Otherwise, people are going to disregard you altogether. So you touched on very good points. Not only like you say, find your own support system, like your group of people, because you will find it if you look hard enough, and also being upfront with like, you can't be timid. You have to be like, hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm good at. You can't be like, well, I don't know. I'm good at this. I can do it. Otherwise, nobody's going to say it for you. So these are very, very good points.
No, you're so right. Yeah. I'm just like you, where I'm like, I also don't like to just be like, oh yeah, I do this, I do that, I do that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it comes across like you're being cocky or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I really learned that the only way for people to honestly somewhat respect me is for people to know, like, no, like I have done this, I know how to do that, I can do that, you know what I mean? And it's just a lot of self-advocacy, I think, is what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly. And if I am facing this as a Black man, which means the men part of this already means I'm privileged enough in this society, I can only imagine what you're going through as a Black woman. This is really, you're getting the worst of it. And I think this would be a great segue into like, so like, what is your experience as a Black woman, like in your academic career or your jobs on campus or really anything in your everyday life?
Yeah, I actually just wrote about this for one of my writing classes over the winter. I definitely do think being a Black woman in just a lot of aspects is super hard. So I just touched about like being a Black woman in STEM already. I don't get the same respect as like from my colleagues, from people that I have to like who work maybe under me or who I'm teaching for. But then also another aspect that that also plays a really big role in my mental health and who I am is basically what you're saying about not even getting support from the communities. So like for me, especially as a Black woman, I do know that there's certain standards where I would like to say there's pretty privilege where now it's like even being a Black woman at this case doesn't even get you anywhere in terms of like having friendships or relationships. It's either you're too dark, or for me at least is I'm too dark. My hair isn't like straight enough, or it's not long enough. Different things. If I wear my hair natural, I'll be honest with everyone, this is a wig. But when I wear my afro, that's not even accepted. And it's just things like that where I can get a lot of derogatory comments about like what I look like, and in that term, that even like pushes me away from, you know, like even like people within the community where I don't feel like I'm included, where I don't feel good enough. So I don't feel good enough in academic sense, and I don't feel good enough in the social sense. I don't feel good in like a physical appearance. So I feel like just navigating through that, especially through college, has taught me a lot. It has broken me a lot more than what people think. I'm actually very insecure, but I'm learning more and more to just find acceptance in like who I am as like a Black woman, loving my skin that I'm in, loving my hair color, my hair texture, loving what can I bring to a, you know, to like the medical field, learning about, you know, medical apartheid, discrimination within medicine, within STEM, and how can I bridge the gap to allow, you know, more voices. So yeah, it's been hard. It's definitely been stressful. It's been something where it takes a toll on you and you just feel like you're not good enough. There's a lot of hopelessness. But I think in the end, which I don't think it's really necessarily a good thing, but I do know a lot of the setbacks have made me stronger. I just wish in the sense I didn't have to go through a lot of like heartbreak and a lot of, you know,
trauma.
discrimination. Yeah, a lot of trauma to be able to be strong. But I think I'm learning that's probably just the reality of it, at least for now, you know.